Today we're gonna make some Dungeons and Dragons themed ambient music. So like for a dungeon crawl scene in a tabletop game, using Reaper and some free plugins with Dexed being the primary synthesizer I'm gonna be using. Let's dive in. The first thing I'm going to do is load up an instance of Dexed in this first track. In this synth, you can download different cartridges, and in those cartridges, you're going to find a lot of different patches. This synth uses the same architecture as the famous DX7 from Yamaha. Let's see if we can find a patch that sounds good. I think this is going to be a perfect start. I'm going to name this track Low Ambience, and I'm going to go ahead and record something. So I think that went pretty well, and as a good starting idea, I'll be able to work with it. One of the things that I try to keep in mind when I'm making background music for a game is that the music is something that needs to be cool, but is rarely going to be the most important thing. We have to leave space for talking. If we were doing a video game, we would need to leave space for things like sound effects. And in this case, I don't want the music to feel exciting. I want it to feel like it's dragging. I want it to feel mysterious, dangerous even. Something that I like doing after I have my basic idea is adjust my project so that the tempo in my grid matches up with things, so I can really easily iterate new ideas and expand using copies of the same ideas. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag these onto the grid. And I'm doing it this way instead of quantizing it because I wasn't playing along to a metronome. So I don't know exactly what I want these to be like. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess I could do something in groups of 5. That's pretty close to what the tempo was. But in this case, I'm probably just going to adjust my actual project tempo a little bit. And I made it a bit slower. And I'm going to use groups of 4. I don't always do this, but I find that it's easier to follow along with, especially if you're a beginner at this stuff. Because groups of 4 are comfortable and familiar. Once I have these in place, I'm going to probably slow it down a little bit more, and then I will quantize it. And again, the reason I'm not quantizing this before I edit manually is because I didn't record this to a metronome or to an existing drum beat. So the computer wouldn't know what I'm trying to quantize it to. This first idea, as with most of my music, is just improvised. And what I'll do is I'll play things over and over again until I find something that sounds good to me. In the case of a video like this, what I'll do is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sounds good. Okay. In the case of a video like this, what I'll do, and I'm pressing Q to quantize that, is mess around with an idea for a little bit before I start recording. That way, the first or second take is likely to be good enough to work with. I also like to leave a little bit of blank space at the beginning of a session, just in case I want to add some kind of an intro. That's the S key to slice that. And I'm going to save the project. The next thing I want to do is find a second sound to work with. I'm going to use another instance of Dexed. And in here, if we load a different cartridge, we'll find different sounds. That's a pretty cool one. I like this bass. I think this sound will be a perfect creepy sound for my dungeon. Let's call this chimes. This time I'm going to put the click on. I think I like something less melodic like this. And I noticed a little mistake, and these are always okay, but it's good to clear them up as you go, just in case you miss it later on. Interesting. I don't know what I was thinking here. That's fine. I don't want to worry about it too much. Okay, so let's hear this a little bit. I think I like that as my starting note, actually. So I'll start over. So I liked part of that, but a little bit of it I didn't like also. So I'm going to come in here and edit it. This part that I was messing with earlier is starting to bother me a little bit. So I am going to change it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This phrase feels like it's the wrong length to me. And although I want this to sound mysterious, I don't want it to be too mysterious. I don't want it to be distracting or jarring in any way. I'm going to extend this a little bit longer. I'll start it here too, so I'm looking at the bar length. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on this one, I'm going to change my grid size before quantizing with the Q key. Or if you wanted to, you could click up here. And I'm going to listen back to some of this part in the middle where I changed things in the top line. Starting from this phrase here. That's the first note I don't really like. I think I want to move those around. Maybe longer notes here. Since the first instrument kind of takes a melody there. All right, that feels good enough for me. The next thing I want here is some kind of a percussive sound. So again, in the interest of using Dexed for this video, I'm going to find some kind of a drum sound in here. FM drum sounds are always pretty cool. They're also strange, so I might take the sound from this and resample it. This is perfect. I'm surprised I found one so fast. I'm going to play along with this for a moment and see if it'll work without resampling. No way. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is FM drum, and I'm going to come over here and record a couple of these, which I will bring into my sampler. That's probably too much. All right, that'll work. And now I'm going to send this routing into track 6. And I'm not going to send MIDI. This is going to be called FM drum audio. And on this track, I'm going to record stereo output. And now if I record arm this track and play this, it should record the audio from this synthesizer. Let's see if it works. We can see that it's working because the waveform's appearing. All right, great. This track now, I'm not going to need Dexed anymore since I'm using audio samples. So I'm going to put an instance of resample-o-matic. And your DAW, if you're not in Reaper, probably has a sampler. You can probably look it up to see what it's called, but you can usually safely start typing in sample in the search fields and they'll turn up. So let's pick a couple of these out. That one's pretty good. I think this is my favorite though. So with that audio item highlighted, I'm going to click import item from a range in the sampler. And you can see that it saves the entire audio item and it's only sampling a piece of it. That's fine. We don't need to change that for now. I'm also going to disarm this track before I forget and mute it. I'm going to remove the MIDI sequence from my FM drum track since I'm going to create a new one. And for now, I'm going to do a little bit more sound design on this. So I'm going to arm this track. And now each key is going to trigger the same sample. This already sounds pretty good, but I want to have the option of taking this particular sample and pitch shifting it with the keyboard. So I'm going to change it to note semitone shifted. That sounds pretty good. I want to see if this is pitched enough to matter. So I'm going to compare it to the pitches in the song. That sounds fine. I'm not worried about it. I like to select obey note offs and add a release time to drum sounds. A long release time will make the whole sample play. A short one lets me have some short sounds and some long ones. And I think that'll sound good. Next up is to come up with something for the drums to play during the song. So I'm going to put my metronome back on and record along with it. I'm relatively satisfied with that. Again, I'm going to quantize these. I need to adjust my grid size. And these buttons up here aren't in Reaper by default. And if you want those, you can click Customize Toolbar and you can select any action you want as a new button. So for example, if I wanted to add a button that affects the grid, I can just type in grid and see what my options are. Let's say we are using half notes a lot. 1/2. Set grid to 1/2. And I could make a button for that. And you can see there are more options than you'll ever really need to use, but I like that they're there because different people have different needs. These need to be set a little faster there. Now quantize that. I played badly in a couple of spots here. So let's see if any of those are enough of a problem to matter. Let's hear this. Good enough for me. This last one actually doesn't need to be there since I'm going to loop this item. And hopefully this sounds pretty good altogether. But knowing the nature of this stuff, it probably won't. So the first thing I think needs to happen is more than one sound doubled up for this big drum. Let's see if that sounds okay. I like that quite a bit more, so I'm going to use that instead. And I also tend to like drum sounds like this with some amount of reverb and with some amount of distortion attached to them. Something else that happens though is that you start losing a lot of the punch when you add things like reverb and distortion. So I want to do that on sends. I already have a send to this track, muting that with Alt-M. And so on this track, I'm going to add some kind of a distortion. I like to use console distortion simulations, but if you don't have one, you can usually just use any type of distortion plugin. So I'll show you what this could sound like with both options. Here's the distortion that comes with Reaper. Channel mode left. Let's change that to stereo. And I'm just going to adjust the send volume. That sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to select a console sim plugin. I find myself using these Arturio ones a lot. This one's great. This is in the category of don't buy it unless it's on sale though. I got a pack with a bunch of these and I don't remember what the cost was, but they ended up being relatively inexpensive if you're using all of them. And it came with a bunch of compressors and things too. And I like every single one of the plugins that came with the pack, so I bought the pack. On these, we have the luxury of boosting specific frequencies. So for example, if we want like a lot of this 5K, because I want distortion specifically. So this is without. This is with. And then this is with the full-on distortion. And here it is with both if you're curious. So I am going to stick with this second one. And the last thing I said was adding reverb, and I have a reverb send already to go. I think I want the low ambience and the chimes to go through this reverb as well. I have a delay send all set up as well, and I might send my chimes through that. That needs one last hit on that big drum, I think. And I think I'm ready to go to another part in the song now. With this type of music, I like to make the songs quite long, and I'm not going to go through and make a 3-hour video today. I do sometimes, and I have some videos on that if you're watching the channel and you're curious. But I like to save those longer experiences for live streams. So I think I'm going to do a little bit more work and then end with a short version of this song instead of having a very, very long drawn out recording. I'm going to add one more instrument. And it'll be another instance of Dexed. I'm going to add 2 more instruments. This one seems like it has the unique luxury of getting to be in this kind of song and this kind of song only. So I'm going to add a rumble. Starting a little early. This will be my intro. I wonder what a high note sounds like on this instrument. It's great. And I think that I can pan this around to make it pretty interesting. Maybe one more high note. And I'm going to use this as a transition. I'm going to just create a panning envelope. And I'm doing that with the P key. P for pan. Let's hear a couple of these spots. transfer this one from one side to the other. I think I want that to happen really fast. Yeah. Nice. I'm going to do that same type of thing on each of these, but I want it to happen a bit differently each time. If I can get it to behave, that is. This last one can be mostly in the middle. Totally in the middle. Same thing over here. I'm going to have this start to find its way out. And it's going to make a big shift. Another big shift here. And another big shift here. Maybe invert these. Okay. Good enough for me. I'm confident that'll sound cool after hearing just one of them, and I'll come back and adjust it if I need to. Rumble. And then on this last one, I think I want some kind of a melody instrument. The melody has to be something I'm very careful with, but I can make melodies work in this kind of music. One more instance of Dexed. Why not? So I'm going to click another cartridge. I'm picking these more or less at random, by the way. I'm just picking a cartridge and going for it. Oh. Every time I open a synth like this, I'm tempted to just pick a sound and go for it. I like all of those. This is closest to what I'm going for this sound. The rumble will go into the reverb a little bit, and so will the melody. Let's go into the reverb a little bit here. And now, as usual, the next step is to just play along. Sounds okay. Getting some ideas. I'm going to start over. relatively happy with that one. I think it'll work. And again, as usual, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to quantize the melody. If you want something that sounds really good, usually what you're going to want to do is to just practice it quite a bit more once you get something that you like and get one really good performance of it. In the interest of making these videos less than 3 hours, I like to quantize liberally. Let me see if there's anything that's glaringly obvious as a problem. What I'm looking for with this is when a note starts in a weird spot in a song that has a pretty normal rhythm. So in this case, this wouldn't make sense. You can see these bar lines, and I was starting on bar lines for many of the melody phrases. This one might be... That's correct, okay. And overlaps are also a thing I'm looking for here. So in this case, this note was bleeding over with that one. So that all looks pretty good. And then I have to basically listen to it in order to figure out if there's any other changes that need to be made, because who knows, right? I kind of want a little bit more reverb on it since it's high up. And I'm going to put a little bit of the delay on it as well, but not too much of it. In case I want to loop this, I'm going to make this start in a normal way, as in on the bar, and end in a normal way. And something I'm thinking of doing with this is to have this melody come in on a second repeat. So in this case, the melody could be part of something that happens over here somewhere. I am going to try and put that together. And I'm going to have this overlap be the place that makes that happen. So on the first instance of it, I'm going to shorten this phrase and slice it here. And I'm also going to remove this last little bit because I want this intro thing to plug in right there. And that's going to make these all line up. Let's hear that transition and see if it works. Yeah, that sounds fine. So I'm going to remove the melody. Again, if we were writing pop music here, I worry that my melody was coming in for the first time. What is that? A minute and a half into the song. But we want this to be dark, ambient dungeon music. So I'm not at all worried. And now we've got perhaps the same thing again here. Let's do this one. So that I can plug myself back in here on my last iteration. And again, we're going to slice these off, I think. And bring these together. And I'll remove the melody from the last iteration as well. I'm tempted to remove the drums from the first iteration. Let's listen to it without these drums and have the drums enter right where that melody comes in. And while this is playing back, I'm going to make some slight mix adjustments. But let's have a listen.